Okay, we're in volume 5 of that I have of the Bible story by Arthur S Maxwell. And we are at part 1, story 11, Heaven's Fiery Chariot. Oh, I know about this story. And let's see what happens. Okay. Elijah's work was almost done. In a very evil time, he stood for God the best he knew. Bravely he fought God's battle and championed his cause. In his heart he felt that God was about to call him away from the world. Elisha was with him constantly now, for Elijah was getting the young man ready to take over his work when he should have to leave it. Elisha, you remember, was mentioned by the still small voice as the one to take Elijah's place. Elijah had anointed him on his return from Mount Horeb, and the two had been working together ever since. As they drew near to Bethel, the sons of the prophet came out to meet them. These were young men from one of the schools of the prophets. Elijah is believed to have started. Strangely, the young people had the same idea about Elijah, that he would not be around much longer. They asked Elisha if God is going to take they asked Elisha if God was going to take his master away soon. They they asked him, yeah, I remember the story. They asked him, "Do you know that God's going to take your master away?" And he said, "Shh, yeah." And there it goes. "Yeah, I know. Hold your peace," he said to them, not wanting to talk about it. Then Elijah told Elisha to wait at Bethel while he went on by himself. "The Lord has sent me to Jericho," he said. Elisha refused to let him go along. "As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth," he said, "I will not leave thee." So the two went to Jericho, where there was another school of prophets. Here again the young men came out to meet them, and again they warned Elisha that he will soon be losing his master. "Yeah, I know," he said. "I know it," he said to them. "Hold your peace." Elijah then told Elijah to wait in Jericho while he went over the Jordan. Again, Elisha, with the S, refused, and he made up his mind to stay with his master to the very end, not knowing where or when, not knowing when or how it would be. "As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee," he said. So the two went on towards Jordan, while at least 50 young men from the school followed at a distance to see what happened. They saw plenty. When Elijah and Elisha reached the river, they didn't they did not wait for a boat or ferry to cross. Taking off his mantle, that's his belt, Elijah folded it up, and smote the waters, and they divided hither and thither, so that the two went over on dry ground. That, he did it, was, without using a boat. It could have been long like Mississippi. Okay, my imagination is to live so close to the Mississippi. Okay, get back to the story. If the young men thought that they would that they might follow, they were mistaken, for the water quickly flowed together again. A moment later the Jordan looked the same as ever. On the other side, Elijah turned to Elisha and said very tenderly, "Ask what I shall do for thee, for I be taken away from thee." The dread moment of parting had come. Soon Elijah would be gone forever. What would Elisha ask of him? Money, land, houses, position, anything he might desire could be his, for surely Elijah was going straight to heaven. And Elisha, with the S, said, "I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me." He could have not made a better choice. God must have been pleased with him as he had been with Solomon when he asked for wisdom. Elijah, the one with the J, said it was a hard thing he had asked, for of course only God could give his spirit. But he added, "If you see me being taken, it shall be so." Then they walked on together, and they went on and they talked. The Bible said, and it is a pity we don't know the last precious words that the two great men of God said to each other. No doubt Elijah with the J urged Elisha with the S to be true and loyal to God and keep the good works going which he had started. They were now not far from Pisgah, which is but 10 miles from Jericho. Perhaps they even climbed to the top of the place where Moses died and God raised him from the dead. By and by the wind began to blow, harder and harder, with a twisting, swirling motion. Elijah with the J seemed to be caught. And then, of course, it has the picture of him taking off his mantle and striking the water to walk on dry land. Okay. And so, let's get back to here. Elijah with the J seemed to be caught up in it, lifted above the earth. Suddenly a blaze of light surrounded them as something appeared in the sky, like one of Ahab's chariots, only 1,000 times more glorious. It was shining radiantly as though it was on fire, while the creatures that drew it seemed to be on fire too. Surely it must be one of God's own chariots, the chariot of angels, sent to bring his faithful servant home. Swiftly it approached Elijah with a J, who stepped on it and was gone. And Elijah with a J went up with a whirlwind into heaven. My father, cried Elisha with an S, as he saw his beloved master carried swiftly upwards in the blazing of glory, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. Something fell from the chariot as it sped away. Slowly it bellowed down to earth as the wind subsided. Eagerly Elisha with the S, and then of course it's a pager, and according to this, it says it's a Fred Collins, and the printing on this is kind of blurry. They printed it blurry, but there's the picture illustration of it. Okay, and let me get back to it. Eagerly Elisha with the S ran and picked it up. It was the mantle. Elijah with the J's mantle, the prophet's last gift to his friend. Picking it up, Elisha with the S returned to Jordan, beyond which was Jericho, with its schools of the prophets, and beyond that the great work God wanted him to do through all Israel. Could he do this work? What was he prepared for it? Could he be the leader Elijah with the J had been? Would God indeed give him a double portion of his spirit? The Jordan was the first test. Would it open up for him as it did for Elijah? Taking Elijah's mantle, he smote the water as his master had done, crying, "The Lord, where is the Lord God of Elijah?" The river parted, and Elisha went over. Now he knew for sure that God was with him and always would be. The sons of the prophets were watching. At first they thought Elijah must have returned, but no, Elisha was alone. Then they knew they had a new master. The spirit of Elijah doeth rest on Elisha, they said. And they were right, for Elisha went on to do more and greater miracles than even Elijah had done. And of course, it has him, and it's a PC or a Collins, and there's what it is. The illustration. Alright, that was the end of part 1. And that was the last story. Part, have to go back looking at what part. Story, part 1, story 11. Yeah, and that was the end of part 1, period. Okay, we're going to stop, and I'm going to start on our next stories. And I'll see you in a minute.